on News Talk ZB.
It is 23 minutes away from 8. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon is with us now, and then after 8 o'clock, Scott Morrison, who was also a Prime Minister, is with us to talk about Australia. So, morning, good to see you.
Good to be with you, Mike.
Pressure's on you, because, I mean, he might out-Prime Minister you.
No, I caught up with Scott a couple of weeks ago when he was over for IDU, which is the centre-right party grouping, so I'm sure you have a lot to say. He's got a book coming out.
Yes, he has. He seems to be having a good life and a good time, and not too many regrets out the other side.
Yeah, well, I've got a regret, which is wearing this Highlanders shirt.
Yeah, well, look, to be honest, I mean...
It sort of feels terrible, mate. It's going to be a shocking interview.
Is it? Don't let your look affect your performance. Do you blame the jersey, or do you in some quiet way blame yourself?
No, I blame the jersey, and I blame your executive producer.
Yeah.
That guy Sam is the nicest man in the country, which is actually probably a testament to you that you've actually been able to attract someone so good that sticks with you.
That's right.
But honestly, like, he set me up badly. He said if we lose against the Highlanders, Machiavellian. That's
they're the worst.
Nicest guy on the outside.
Nicest guy on the surface, just behind the scenes.
Underneath.
As soon as he held that jersey up this morning, I thought that's nothing but trouble for you.
I said to him, mate, I'm an XL, and he's given me an XS, right? So he's just literally doubled down and made it even worse. Yeah. I feel like Beaver in the World Cup, you know.
How are you going fitness-wise?
Well, I mean, it's a constant struggle just getting time to exercise, right? And my body loves it, and I love exercising. But, you know, it's an hour and a half out of a day. Sometimes it's quite difficult. So keeping it integrated into my schedule is pretty challenging at times.
Winston Peters and the Solomons yesterday, there was a small announcement, I think, on solar panels or solar work or something like that. What are we trying to achieve here, given China's in there? They've signed the deal. They've got a new Prime Minister. He's pro-Chinese. What are we looking to achieve?
Yeah, look, again, you know, we want to make sure across the Pacific we've got deep relationships. They're long-standing ones for us. It's obviously a very it's becoming more contested geostrategically. It's important for us as New Zealand to be in there building those relationships with those island nations. A lot of the issues are around development and support for those economies. A lot of it's around climate change and obviously about regional security and stability. So it's important, you know, that we are circulating well and building those relationships and making them.
Do you really believe that, or is it really just about money?
No, I really believe it. It's genuinely about making sure that the Pacific Island nations activate through the Pacific Island Forum, which is the key vehicle by which, you know, development partners from around the world who want to work with Pacific Island nations should be channeling their investments through and working with. But for us, it's about just deepening those relationships across the Pacific. And you're seeing that across the piece as we're having a big foreign affairs reset, which is to say, look, our national interests are actually about security and economic. They are interdependent and joined up. You can't have economic interests separate from security interests and vice versa. And that's why you're seeing us put a real big effort on Australia first and foremost, the Pacific, Southeast Asia, and between myself and between Winston and Judith Collins in Defence and Todd McClay on Trade, the four of us in a foreign policy sense meet as a regular group to make sure we're lifting the intensity and urgency. We want New Zealand to be relevant. We don't want to become irrelevant in the Indo-Pacific region.
That $500 million on defence last Friday, how much of that is about, in some way, shape or form, AUKUS?
Well, no, it's just a start to recognise that we've had a rundown defence force, and we've got a wholesale change of the heads of the Defence Forces across Army, Navy and Air Force, and the Chief of Defence Force will change as well. That's all literally happening in these next few months, so there'll be new leadership coming in. We want to do a capability review, so we're really clear that a lot of our responsibility is to, you know, power up the Australian, be a force multiplier for the Australian Defence Forces, make sure that we're interoperable with them, and then we'll make sure that we start to lift our defence spending. So this is a start. A lot of it, I think there's 163 million of it going into remuneration, the rest into some facilities and some infrastructure. But, you know, we need to make sure that we have, you know, good defence spending that's consistent with our values. You can talk about stuff, but you've got to follow through and deploy.
I spoke with Peters about a week or so ago. He after that AUKUS speech, he didn't seem to know what was going on. That's not an insult. He just no one knows. Do you know anything?
Well, the challenge is there's this AUKUS Pillar 2 thing that's thrown around. It's been very undefined as to what it actually is, because the AUKUS countries themselves actually have to get aligned and have some definition around that. Only in the last couple of weeks have they said there's actually a pathway for our officials to start to discuss with them more fully about what the potential of it is. It's been loosely referred to as technologies that could support that alliance. So again, that'll be a long process. We need to get our officials in there talking with...
We're no further ahead.
No, but we've got an intention to explore it, as we said. Okay. The officials will continue that conversation, and then we'll move up.
The Palestinian vote over the weekend at the UN, was that designed because you know full well it's going to get sanctioned and tossed out at the... No,
that was really us just acknowledging, look, you know, we really do want to see a two-state solution emerge in the Middle East.
Even though it will never happen.
It's inevitable that, at some point you've got to recognise Palestinian statehood. This wasn't that. This was about enhanced membership of Palestine within the United Nations. They can't select candidatures. They've got some limitations. It's not full membership as such, but it's just an acknowledgement that actually the world is pretty frustrated with where things are at the moment, and more military action doesn't solve the problem. You've got to be able to get these parties around a table. Hamas has to release hostages. We have to get humanitarian aid in there, and we need a permanent ceasefire so we can get back to a peace process that ultimately delivers a two-state solution. That has been one of the frustrations on this conflict, right? If you think about the big conflicts of the 20th century, they've been resolved, and this is one that hasn't been resolved.
Karen Shaw was on just after 7 o'clock this morning. She said she couldn't talk about the case, which indicates the case is still live, despite the fact I didn't think the case was live, because the legislation's there and the tribunal's over. It means you must be looking at appealing. Is that fair?
Well, we only got the judgment yesterday, so it's a pretty big judgment, and we need to work our way through it and then take advice on whether we will appeal it and what we'll do next. Again, the substantive issue here is we are very united and very strongly aligned around the fact that we don't believe Section 7AA is the right thing. We think the primacy of a child is important over and above their cultural needs. Apart
from several lawyers pocketing money from the taxpayer, has anything at all been achieved by this whole exercise?
Well, it's frustrating because the Waitangi Tribunal has asked us for a whole bunch of information, often briefs that actually are inputs to conversations that may happen in cabinet or discussions. We've tried to be in the spirit of what's called comity, making sure that the different branches of government are respectful of each other, provided that information. Again, we'll have a look at the judgment and work out what comes next.
Okay, the regional roads announced yesterday, you've got to PPP them, told them you have no money to do this, correct?
Yeah, we're very up for bringing in private capital big time. We have to.
When's that actually happen?
Well, again, there's a process we're working through. First and foremost, get the resource and consenting straight. Fast track consenting becomes very critical for a lot of these projects. Secondly, we want to form a national infrastructure agency, which actually will be the financing and funding vehicle to work out which private capital, domestic or international, is relevant for which type of project and which model sort of a financing works. And then thirdly, we've got to get New Zealand to be an attractive place that foreign capital wants to come to. And at the moment, New Zealand, I think, ranks just behind Mexico as the second worst place in the OECD that foreign capital wants to come to. So if you're a foreign investor sitting in Singapore or the States or somewhere else, and you're looking at all the options of where you can invest, New Zealand has sent a message very clearly that we're not open for business and we make it too hard. And so that's why I work on the resource consenting, work on the financing, and work on the international attraction of capital.
The fast tracking, have you been surprised at the pushback, or has the pushback come from the people you knew would push back?
No, pretty much where it came from. It's in a select committee process. It's going through a full 6-month select committee process, which means it's robust and people can we're not rushing the law being passed. We want a good quality law. But I make no apologies. We are going to get stuff built in this country. We have had so much talking and not enough doing. We've had double the amount of time it now takes to get a resource consent. It's costing $1.3 billion a year, which has doubled. Our building costs are up over 41%. They're 50% higher than Australia. We have to get stuff done. And so a one-stop shop fast-track consenting is going to be the guts of what we're doing here. We'll take some advice through the select committee process if there's things that can be done to improve the legislation. But bottom line is, we make no apologies, we have to get stuff done now.
That ministerial statement last week on the gas that Simeon Brown was turned into a debate, and Victor came out and said, we've been talking to government for 4 years.
It's insane.
4 years.
Yep.
How is it possible that we've landed in this position whereby we haven't got enough windmills and we haven't got enough gas either?
Yeah, well, it's insane, right? It is absolutely insane. How on earth do you rock up in Taranaki, make an explanation overnight that you're going to ban oil and gas, and there is no second, third order consequences or implications or plan as to how you will manage that transition? And it's a lot of bumper stickers and it's a lot of headlines, but actually, again, classic sort of Labour, lots of post-it notes, no plan to actually deliver the program. And here we are today. We know we'd all love to be 100% renewable, don't get me wrong, but that last 5% is frickin' expensive to get there. And the second thing is we need to make sure we've got gas when our natural resources, there isn't sun and where there isn't water and lakes and stuff. And so we need gas as a transitory energy source for some time. If you can't get gas, you end up going to coal, which is worse than gas, and gas isn't as good as renewables, I get it, but that is the pragmatic reality of it. So either you have a proper plan to do a transition like that, or you just do the bumper stickers, and that's what happened.
Real quick, Costa today, is this Strike Force Raptor or something that looks like it?
It's a focus from the political police to go after gangs and make sure that we make their life difficult, and that's entirely appropriate. They want all the rights of being Kiwis, none of the responsibilities, and so we're going to double down on gangs.
As you stand up and leave the studio, suck it in. Nice to see.
This is the most horriblest interview I've ever had with you, Mike Hosking.
Nice to see you. 13 minutes away from 8.
Hey, it's Hamish here from one of your locally owned and operated fresh choice supermarkets.